Wizard101 has evolved a lot over time. While stuff like quests and new spells have stayed the same, there have been tons of new ideas put into the game to keep it fresh and exciting. What we're looking at today is all the new stuff KI gave us, so we'd come back with each new update. Keep in mind, I'll be ranking every new feature how it stands today, meaning even if something was popular at launch, if it's dead today, it'll rank lower on the list. So without further ado, let's begin. Number 97, Console and Steam. Normally I wouldn't rank something that hasn't come out yet, but I feel like enough info already exists for me to make an accurate judgment. Very recently in August 2024, KI finally announced that Wizard101 will be coming soon to consoles. Oh my god. You're telling me I can kick back on my couch and boot up Wiz for my Xbox? This has the potential to double or even triple the player base. We may even see full realms again. But what KI deceptively left out of their trailer was the fact that just like Wizard101's Steam release in 2017, Wizard101 console will not support crossplay with PC, meaning it'll exist on its own separate server. Why would anyone who's been playing for over a decade make a brand new account just to play on a different device? This fatal mistake on KI's part will just lead to another dead server. Such a letdown for something players have been requesting for over a decade. Number 96, Henchmen. Henchmen are NPCs you purchase with crowns to temporarily aid you in battle. They really just exist as a last-ditch pay-to-win effort if you're about to lose a fight. But in a social MMO where you could just, I don't know, ask a friend for help, Henchmen are not worth the money. Number 95, FriendFinder. FriendFinder lets you add your Pirate 101 friends on Wizard 101 and vice versa. Does anyone use this? Why not just ask for their Discord? Number 94, Whirlyburly. What is this, 3-player chess? And why are you forced to play it in the main questline? At least players found a glitch to skip it. Number 93, Silver Chests. Silver chests are just wooden chests with slightly better rewards, except instead of instantly opening them, you have to slog through the most painfully boring minigame ever. In the November 2014 update, the devs eventually added a second, slightly more fun minigame that'll rotate in randomly. But man, these are not worth it. Number 92, Loyalty Program. The Loyalty Program rewards players who maintain consecutive months of membership. Every month you stay subbed, you're given 1 loyalty token to spend at the loyalty store on valuable prizes. Yeah, this program screams corporate greed. What's frustrating is that even if you go 1 day without a membership between 2 active subs, you'll miss out on your loyalty token for that month. The membership model no longer feels temporary because the loyalty program guilts you into immediately auto-renewing due to fear of missing out on your next token. And I hate how KI advertises this program as a special bonus to make members feel less neglected since Crowns players always get to see new items in the Crown shop. I don't think members ever felt jealous of Crowns players. Members already get weekend benefits, and it's not like Crowns players get these Crown shop items for free. This is just a false narrative to disguise the loyalty program's true intent of invoking FOMO in players to further drain their money. Number 91, Flat Stats. In a combat system where large damage values normally get multiplied and divided, adding and subtracting is negligible. Ah yes, let me add 4 damage to my Stormzilla. Number 90, Castle Games. The concept of gathering friends to play games in your very own castle has a lot of potential. But man, KI really dropped the ball on this one. And if you don't believe me, go check out the public Castle Games board in the Castle Tours building today. It's just sad and empty. Within the past decade, KI's only released 3 very basic games that all feel very similar to one another. There's Scavenger Hunt, where you find things, Tag, where you tag players, and Food Fight, where you find things and tag players. Why limit these games to running-based activities? Why not release in-house versions of party games like Pictionary, or card games like Uno? I think KI's biggest mistake here was not giving any actual incentive to play these games. These castle games are the only activities in the entire game that don't give a reward, aside from literal practice activities like practice PvP and practice pet derby. Even the mini-game housing items at least fill up your potions, so why not have castle games reward you with something small like gold or treasure cards? Maybe back in 2012 when there was less side content, you'd run out of things to do and end up giving these games a try. But these days, with fun, challenging, and actually rewarding side content like Beastmoon, the Deckathalon, and PvP tournaments, good luck finding friends to play tag. Number 89, playable musical instruments. Yeah, give anyone who enters my house access to a public piano keyboard. That won't be annoying. Number 88, recent wizards. Recent Wizards lets you message or teleport to anyone you recently shared an activity with, like exploring a dungeon together, hatching a pet together, PvPing together. You get the idea. It's a very useless feature because if someone you recently encountered was worth interacting with more, you would have already added them. Maybe this could be useful for after a Beastmoon match where you often can't click your teammates in the chat box to open their profiles, but even then I feel like it would be used more for griefing than anything else. Glad I can turn ports off. Number 87, Crowns Packs. When Wizard101 exposed children to gambling. Not only does KI lock overpowered exclusive gear behind a paywall, but they're literally using the same unethical loot box monetization model other gaming companies have been heavily criticized for. Here, you pay real money to open virtual booster packs for a chance at getting the item you want, meaning you could spend hundreds of dollars before ever getting that item. You might not even get it at all. And to make matters worse, KI doesn't publicly disclose their drop rates, which feels very suspicious. Sure, the rush you get from finally opening your item feels amazing, but hey, that's just gambling. For children. Number 86, Pet Derby. In May 2010, KI introduced Pet Derby. Look, it's PvP for your pets. Clearly the devs put a lot of effort into making this, adding both a practice and ranked mode, a score display on your profile, and even derby powers to give your pets bonuses while racing. There was even a commercial for this. But let's be real, nobody cares about Pet Derby. Just try joining a match. The queue's dead. Number 85, Pixie Post. When KI discovered email in 2024. Maybe back in 2008 this would have been useful, but today it doesn't make sense communicating with offline players using this when Discord exists. Number 84, Daily Assignments. Just another one of KI's attempts at keeping you logging back on every single day. I don't know what's worse, the mind-numbingly boring tasks or the abysmal rewards. 10 crowns? Really? Number 83, Pay by Zone. Just 1 month after the game's launch on October 2008, KI introduced a new way to unlock in-game content instead of paying for a membership. With Pay by Zone, you can permanently purchase individual areas with crowns. Is Pay by Zone actually worth it though? Well, the total price of every single zone from Arcs 1 through 4 comes out to 230,695 crowns, which converts roughly to $230 if you're taking advantage of KI's periodic crown sales. Considering a 1-year membership costs $60, it's a better deal to pay by zone only if you're committed to playing Wizard101 for at least 4 years. So in the long run, it's worth it, but I still wouldn't want to miss out on those sweet member benefits. Number 82, Photomancy. I'm not against Wizard101 having a camera mode for capturing memorable moments along your journey, but the truth is, most of Photomancy can just be accomplished by taking a screenshot and watching a 1-minute crash course on Photoshop. It's nice you could snap pics from different camera angles, but these camera movements feel way too slow and confining. Why not give us a free roaming camera for aerial views and faraway shots? What are you hiding behind your walls, KI? The decals UI feels clunky. Again, you're much better off using Photoshop, or even Microsoft Paint. And I wish we had some way to share photos with other players and rate them, like a version of Castle Tours or Rate My Stitch, but for Photomancy. It would be awesome seeing just how creative players can get. And at least then we'd have more of an incentive to use this feature. Number 81, Training Point Buyback. It's frustrating how KI locks the ability to reset your training points behind a paywall. So many new players excitedly train spells they won't necessarily need for the future, so it's unfair they have to pay to refund them. Number 80, Second Chance Chests. Great, another monetized feature. By coughing up some crowns, you get extra rolls from a boss's loot pool. At least the price for this starts off relatively low before egregiously ramping up with consecutive chest openings. For some painful dungeons that drop meta gear like Darkmoor and Nightmare, this could actually save you a lot of time farming. I just wish KI would occasionally let you open these second chance chests for free. They could even add something like free second chance tokens as event rewards, similar to the free Stitch tokens we get from Rate My Stitch. But for now, any feature that's entirely paywalled gets ranked low on the list. Number 79, Legacy Events. Similar to holiday events, KI releases 2 other events once a year, the Lost Pages and 5 Boxes event. Each event comes with a series of dungeons, its own set of badges, and exclusive item drops. I'm almost always a fan of limited time events, but these 2 events just feel so stale. Sure, when they were initially released over a decade ago, they felt exciting and provided a challenge for max level players at the time, back when the cap was just 90. But after appearing year after year after year after year, they've just overstayed their welcome. And they completely lack any of the charm, spirit, and festivity that comes with holiday events. And I hate how the 5 Boxes event contains extremely important dialogue relating to the Ravenwood professors that's essential for fully understanding the game's lore. Why would you lock such important story details behind a limited time event? Number 78, Extra Credits. This program consists of a small group of family-friendly content creators handpicked by KI to partake in monthly objectives, so the teacher's pets of Wizard101. Each creator is given a special green name in-game, and a special role in the official Wizard101 Discord server. They also gain access to a private Extra Credits Discord server, where they have open communication with the devs and get early info on game updates. This program's a win-win for everyone involved. The creators win because KI boosts their content, and KI wins because, well, more Wizard101 content means more publicity for the game. But I'm not a fan of this program. Not only can this be seen as KI playing favorites, but I don't think it's healthy to stifle a creator's freedom through forced monthly objectives. Number 77, Play as Your Pet. In April 2020, KI introduced Pet Mode, allowing you to run around the spiral as your pet. Why? It's cute? Even KI knows this is one of those features you'll try out once then forget it exists, so they shoehorned moments in the game that require pet mode, like certain raid items you can only pick up in pet mode, and several main quests where you follow scented trails or crawl into small entryways, but it just feels so forced. Sure, it's cute to watch your Gobbler Ball bust out some moves, but I'd rather KI spend development time on something players would actually use more. Number 76, Cantrips. These are all your non-combat spells that cost energy to cast. Most of these just feel so useless, and energy's a hot commodity for competitive players. Why spend it to cast a flip when I can just emote? Why spend it to port to a world when I can just port home and use my world door? Not to mention, ranking up your cantrip level is an extremely tedious grind that requires hoarding reagents to craft treasure cards, then casting them over and over again. It is nice you can get spell elements from cantrip chests, but these require 3 players to magic touch, which could be frustrating to open. Ironically, for a feature intended to be used outside of combat, the only cantrips worth casting are the ones that affect combat, like the health and mana radiances and the sigil support spells. But even these are only useful for competitive raids, so most players just forget cantrips exist. Number 75, Deckathalon. The monthly Deckathalon event is a true testament to just how far players are willing to grind for a spot on a leaderboard. You climb up a tower, fighting battle after battle, earning points as you go, using only treasure cards? But isn't that costly and time-consuming to prepare for? Yep. KI actually added this event as a way to stop players from hoarding treasure cards, but ironically, what they failed to realize was that by making this event so darn competitive, with exclusive badges and trophies only given out to the top 3 players globally, you're required to hoard tons of expensive treasure cards just to compete with everyone else. And did I mention you need a very particular perfect pet? There's been so many controversies surrounding the Deckathalon, they deserve a whole video on their own. In my second iceberg video, I already discussed how toxic and unhealthy the event initially was before KI limited players to 3 entries per day. And more recently, there's been so many cases of blatant cheating KI conveniently turned a blind eye to, until it got so bad the devs literally removed the leaderboard. So what's even the point of playing now? The hamsters are super cute though. Number 74, Music Scrolls. Anyone else hate getting swamped by these? Music scrolls let you play your favorite Wizard101 tunes in the background of your own home. Don't get me wrong, I love Wizard101's soundtrack. It's some of the best video game music ever created. I'm just not a fan of this housing item system. It's annoying how these music scrolls take up backpack space, which becomes especially frustrating in Arc 3 when every few quests you have to quick sell dozens after accumulating so many. And since only one of each scroll can be inserted into a music player, they very quickly become dead weight. I think a much better system for playing music in your house would be, instead of having physical items that take up inventory space, you should be able to train music themes like you train spells in your spellbook. So just like how once you train a spell, you have permanent access to use it in any deck, once you unlock a music theme, you should have permanent access to play it in any house. This could even work well with badge rewards. Anytime you receive a badge for completing a world, you could be rewarded with all that world's music themes. Pet minigame badges could reward pet minigame music. Even the badge for defeating Krampus could reward his combat theme. But as music scrolls currently stand today, no. Number 73, Stun Resistance. Once KI noticed how overpowered stuns were becoming back in May 2011, they introduced a new stat. With stun resistance, players now have a chance at fully preventing incoming stuns without the use of a stun block or conviction aura. I actually really like this stat, but it's always felt so neglected by KI. In PvE, you won't find any solid gear with it, except the complete Dragoon set bonus, which hardly anyone uses. And even if you do come across a jewel or pet talent with this stat, it's in such a low amount that it's just not worth equipping. And as for PvP, Diego did used to sell a few accessories like the Amulet of Free Movement and the Dagger of Blue Leaves, but these were more for the memes. Warlords wouldn't actually equip them. I just wish KI did something more with this stat. Why is there hardly any gear with it? Shouldn't bosses have stun resistance instead of pure stun immunity? Does the mere existence of stun resistance mean we'll get stun pierced in the future? Number 72, Fishing. It's actually really impressive how KI added hundreds of unique fish models. And the fact that you could find fish in just about any single body of water, or lava, builds immersion. But fishing's just way too tedious and energy demanding of an activity. The fishing quests are borderline unplayable without the zero energy fishing member benefit, meaning you're better off ignoring fishing altogether until KI randomly activates this. It is nice how you could fish up crowns, gear, mounts, and exclusive housing items though, and you'll want to rank up your fishing level for things like crafting and raiding. But other than that, you're better off spending your energy on pet trading or gardening. Number 71, Spell Audits. Every single game needs balance changes to nerf overpowered mechanics and buff underpowered mechanics, and Wizard101 is no exception. Except, I've never seen a gaming company fail to balance their game worse than KI. Whereas most games introduce frequent minor balance patches based on empirical data, like use rates and win rates, KI will often ignore balancing spells for long periods of time, before suddenly dropping drastic, unpredictable spell changes. I mean, it took 12 whole years after Wizard101's launch for KI to finally release their first ever significant balance update, the infamous 2020 Spell Audit. Here, they completely gutted high-rank hits, especially the Darkmoor ones, resulting in tons of community backlash. They also decided to buff rank 7 AoEs, their reason being these should feel like a special reward for completing Arc 1. What? This decision single-handedly destroyed any remnants of spell balancing whatsoever, because why on earth would players ever cast anything other than their overpowered rank 7 AoEs now? Spells like Snow Angel and Rain of Fire have completely fallen into obscurity. PvE feels staler than ever now. Just blade into your rank 7 AoE every single fight. The only redeeming quality of all the nerfs during this 2020 spell audit was that it led to a massive game-wide enemy health nerf, where KI nerfed the HP of every mob and boss in Celestia onwards by 20%. Thankfully now Azteca and Chrysalis bosses aren't as tanky as when they were first released. It's worth noting that since the 2020 spell audit, KI has conducted a few more spell audits, but lately these consist of just banning cards from PvP. I wish they'd move this PvP ban symbol. I hate how it blocks the card artwork. Overall, whether KI is just too incapable to fix their own spells, or they just don't care, it's shocking how many underwhelming spells remain completely ignored by them. I actually covered lots of these in my last video. And don't get me started on how unbalanced Beastmoon is. Number 70, Mastery Amulets. These allow you to use power pips on another school's spells, which could actually come in handy in a lot of situations, like casting mutates or healing as a non-life wizard. The problem though, is that these amulets don't really come with good sockets or stats as a trade-off. And given the fact that KI hasn't released a new batch since level 130, equipping a Mastery Amulet as a max level wizard is not worth taking such a drastic hit to your stats. Luckily, KI eventually solved this problem by introducing Archmastery. So sorry Mastery Amulets, there's no use for you anymore. Number 69, Scroll of Fortune and PvP Battle Pass. Remember when every video game company tried to copy the success of Fortnite by annoyingly adding their own Battle Pass? Well, KI didn't add one. They added two. There's the seasonal Scroll of Fortune that's based on earning weekly event points, and the bi-monthly PvP Battle Pass that's of course based on PvP. For a casual player, neither one is worth purchasing. I mean, the Scroll of Fortune does have some nice rewards, like a paywall jewel, an exclusive emote, a themed cosmetic gear set, and a snazzy teleport effect. But for $15, it's only worth it if you actually care about the other rewards, like all the Beastmoon, Lunari, and Deckathalon runes. And same goes for the PvP Battle Pass. Unless you actively PvP, it's not worth buying. I will say, it's nice how KI offers a few free rewards on each Battle Pass, and they let members buy passes at 50% off. But it doesn't take a genius to realize how this entire mechanic was clearly just intended to further drain players' bank accounts and keep them hooked online longer grinding for points. Not very healthy, and not necessary for a game like Wiz. Number 68, Cosmetic Items. These are your emotes and teleport effects. It's great how you can unlock these through things like Rate My Stitch and Scroll of Fortune, because more character customization leads to an overall more fun and personalized experience. And it's cool how KI now lets you cycle through teleport effects and cycle through emotes as your victory dance. But you see, KI has this bad habit of not properly introducing new mechanics. And when switching emotes over from menu chat to the radial emote wheel, they never once taught players in-game how to actually open this wheel. Instead, they put shortcuts in the update notes, which most players don't read. So ironically, this change, which was intended to make emotes more accessible, actually made emotes way less accessible than when they simply existed as menu chat options. Number 67, Housing Gauntlets and Portal of Peril. Housing Gauntlets are dungeons you can own. You purchase them for crowns to permanently keep in your house. It's nice that gauntlets can drop crowns, gear, and mounts, and it's cool how some of these gauntlets let us explore other parts of the spiral that don't get their own world, like Cool Ranch and the Bayou. But these dungeons are short, and start feeling very repetitive after just a few runs. I just wish KI wouldn't spend so much development time and resources working on purely monetized dungeons. Why not add Cool Ranch as an actual side world instead of gatekeeping it behind a paywall I'd imagine less than 1% of players actually purchase? And this just leads to the same problem we see with new Crowns pets. After one person buys one, everyone else just hounds them to use it. Oh, and if I'm not allowed to use gauntlets in castle tours, then why is there a category for top gauntlets? Is KI aware of this? Are they encouraging us to use glitches? And as for Portal of Peril, I think it's a lazy event. It's not a bad way to get Dreamwater Spellaments and Tourney tokens, but same old story of KI reusing assets and rehashing old content. Number 66, Gift Giving. It's nice being able to show your appreciation to friends by buying them Crown Shop items. The only downside is all the panhandlers you'll find in the commons. Nobody's gifting you, Blake! Number 65, Open Chat. Open Chat is the game's least censored chat mode, available to players 18 and up. Before it was added in July 2009, players were forced to use text chat with a much stricter chat filter where you couldn't even type numbers. In a game where it's important to communicate things like level requirements and, I don't know, damage values, you could see how this would get very frustrating. But even Open Chat has its limits. I can't say damn in a social MMO. We're all adults here. Number 64, Monstrology. By enchanting your hits with extract spells, you collect animus from the enemies you defeat to then be used for summoning, expelling, or creating house guests of them. It's pretty obvious Monstrology only exists because KI already had every mob and boss's character model and stats lying around, and they thought, well, what else can we do with all this? This is easily one of the less interesting features of Wiz, and something only a small portion of players actually care about. But hey, at least summon cards are useful for soloing PvE, and house guests are a hot commodity in the decorating community. Oh, and fun fact, there's actually a massive underground Monstrology black market for buying and selling house guests and treasure cards. This one only costs $100. Number 63, Groups. It feels weird calling this a new feature, but groups technically weren't around during launch. Groups can hold up to 6 wizards. You'll get access to a private group chat, you'll be kept in the same realm as your group mates, you can ride on each other's mounts, you can queue up for Beastmoon matches together. If 4 wizards of the same group enter any PvE battle ring, you're guaranteed first in turn order before your enemies, and that's pretty much it. A simple feature with some nice perks. Number 62, Adventure Parties. These are just permanent groups. Yeah. Number 61, Emojis. In July 2017, we saw a lot of chat improvements, including the ability to send and receive emojis. The faces are cute and fun. The symbols help you communicate strategy with menu chatters, and the hearts let you express yourself. Number 60, Quest Finder. Having trouble finding a new side quest? With the press of a button, Quest Finder instantly seeks out and displays whatever quest you're closest to. This was a major quality of life improvement, because before this, you had to walk aimlessly around the map hoping to find one. As a side quest completionist myself, this feature has saved me a lot of time and sanity. Number 59, Feed Pet and Quick Sell. These are 2 extra ways to sell your items that give more value than trashing, but less value than the bazaar. You should really just use these for your no auction items, or if you're in a rush and can't make that bazaar trip. Feeding to pet raises lots of questions though. Is it animal abuse if I shove an industrial crane down my pet's throat? You can't feed it any other pets, but you can feed it house guests? How is it not dying when I feed it poison? Number 58, Pip Conversion. Pip Conversion's one of Wizard101's less important stats. The higher your rating, the more likely you'll convert a single pip to a power pip when all 7 pip slots are full, or save a pip when overcasting for a spell. Which isn't terrible, but you're way better off investing in your other stats. Number 57, Critical and Block. The critical stat was game-breaking in 2010. This was the first time KI ever introduced a new stat post-launch, and it certainly lived up to its hype. The higher chance you'd raise your critical rating, the higher chance you'd land a critical hit, which at the time dealt twice as much damage. That's equivalent to adding an extra 100% to your damage stat. And critical block worked the same way. The higher you'd raise your critical block rating, the higher chance you'd fully negate the ×2 multiplier of an incoming critical hit. At the time, critical hits made PvE a cinch. Why max out your damage stat when you could just go for perfect crit and obliterate your enemy? This critical power creep got so bad that in November 2020, KI ended up reworking both crit and block by applying a much more complex formula, instead of simply multiplying and dividing by 2. Sadly, this change gutted critical damage to the point where nobody cares about their crit stat anymore. But I'm actually very happy with this rework, because nerfing critical damage definitely mitigated the overall power creep this stat was originally contributing to, which was very healthy for the longevity of the game. Number 56, Maycasts and Willcasts. These pet talent mechanics aren't used often by casual players, but they do play a niche role in the competitive scene. Generally speaking, Willcasts are a lot more useful than Maycasts. Willcast Torrance's Rage and Bernie's Omen are meta in the Crying Sky raid. Willcast Niall's Omen is useful in PvP against trap stackers, Willcast Frozen Kraken is pretty much required for the Deckathalon, and Willcast Hex and Curse actually can come in handy for PvE. Maycasts, however, have just been nerfed into oblivion at this point, with overall decreased cast rates and being limited in advanced combat to 1 Maycast per fight. So for PvE, you're better off just equipping an all damage pet. But still, Maycast Brace and Maycast Dragonlance do see some use in competitive PvP. Number 55, KI Free Games, Wizardblox, and Grub Guardian. Over the years, KI's released a few games outside of Wiz which can actually benefit your Wiz account. There's KI Free Games, a site hosting minigames and trivia, Wizardblox, a mobile app version of the Fairgrounds minigame Sorcery Stones, and Grub Guardian, a tower defense game. Each of these games rewards you with codes redeemable for in-game Wizard101 items. Grub Guardian in particular gives some pretty awesome stuff. Card packs, pets, exclusive housing items, energy elixirs. Players even received the retired Storm Beetle pet during its launch. Number 54, Guilds. My main gripe with guilds is just how much they've divided the player base. Before the introduction of guilds in summer 2022, Wizard101 felt a lot more inclusive. Back in the day, you'd find tons of public Wizard101 Discord servers, with hundreds of players voice chatting and interacting together. It was a lot easier to make new friends within the community. But now, players tend to stick to their own private guild servers. So things like finding a team for post-game content like challenge modes and boss rematches become extremely difficult unless you're part of a guild, which further isolates solo players. Guilds do have many redeeming qualities though. Group decorating is fun and collaborative. The extra crafting vendors and daily rewards are nice. And guild activities like raids, gold key portals, and guild museum provide players with post-game content and encourage friendly competition. Number 53, faction vendors. These are vendors that sell you valuable items, like mounts and apartments? But only after you earn their respect through defeating enemies of rivaling factions. For example, the Serpentine faction vendor only opens up shop once you kill enough Calixco guards and Djinns. The House Tabby vendor only opens up shop once you kill enough House Persian assailants and sandworm larvae. You get the idea. Sadly, faction vendors only exist in Mirage, but I'd love to see KI add them back in future worlds because I think this concept's really fun and interesting. It's funny how disloyal you are pledging allegiance to multiple different factions. Like, shouldn't these faction vendors mind when you massacre hundreds of their own species for another faction vendor? Awkward. Number 52, member benefits. Every weekend the devs activate a special perk for all members. The problem is that 1, these perks are wildly inconsistent. Things like double pet experience, double reagents, and double gardening are way more rewarding than bonus daily assignment rewards and free training point buyback. I mean, zero energy fishing literally makes an entire feature of the game playable for once. And 2, the devs don't use a fixed schedule for rotating these benefits equally. Instead, they pick and choose each weekend's benefit at random, often repeating the same disappointing ones over and over again, meaning members can go up to an entire year with back-to-back double Monstrologies, bonus daily assignments, and free training point buybacks before even getting a single double reagents or double gardening. So this feature ends up being a disappointment way more often than it should. Number 51, Spellcard Inspect. At first, I was shocked at how useless of a feature this is, because am I looking at this right? Is this not the exact same description as what's shown on the spell card? Then I realized you can actually hover over each symbol to see what it means, which is honestly useful considering how confusing KI makes spells nowadays. What am I looking at? Hey, just wanted to quickly pop in and let you know that up to 11% of people watching my videos are now subscribed to the channel. I just wanted to say thank you. That's super amazing. We're growing so much. And there's still a lot of you who are not yet subscribed, so if you do want to help the channel out, it would mean the world to me. Okay, where was I? Number 50, PvP tournaments. Back in the day, PvP tournaments rocked. They had cool themes like quick match tournaments where global damage and pierce ramped up, classic tournaments where no pet, amulet, or treasure cards were allowed, school perk tournaments where certain schools' damage got buffed, and turn-based tournaments where turn order alternated. The best part of tournaments by far though was the ridiculous amount of arena tickets you get for participating. Even if I logged off immediately without playing a single match, I'd get 250 tickets for coming in last place? Compare this to the 20 to 30 tickets you'd get from winning a regular PvP match, and it's clear just how lucrative tournaments were. And keep in mind, these tournaments only cost gold to enter, so their return on investment was huge. You could redeem energy gear, mega snacks, and permanent mounts with ease. Sadly, KI eventually cracked down on how busted this system was, making tournaments way more difficult to enter and heavily nerfing the rewards. Number 49, equipment sets. Giving players the ability to instantly swap other gear on the fly is an incredible quality of life improvement. Just please let us custom name our sets, because it's torture scrolling through so many filler words just to find what we're looking for. What is a socket set? Number 48, incoming and outgoing healing. Adding stats to increase both incoming and outgoing heal value was a direct buff for life wizards. Not only do more stats lead to more variation in stat building, which is always a good thing, but now heals scale more proportionally to damage, making them more effective in combat. Number 47, Test Realm. This is a separate public test server where players can preview and test new content before an update goes live. It's only accessible to players with an active membership or crowns purchase within the past 30 days, and any progress you make here won't carry over to Live Realm. It's fun to test out new upcoming content, but isn't this just free labor? Why am I testing KI's game for them? Do they not have a QA department? Is this why the game has so many bugs? Number 46, Lore Spells. A core memory of any true Wizard101 fan is relentlessly farming lore spells way back in the day. These were spells you couldn't normally obtain through training or spell quests. Instead, you'd get them from opening crowns packs, crafting from treasure cards, or of course, farming Lore Master. This sigil was an absolute madhouse. Everybody was farming it. Team-ups would fill instantly. I farmed here so much, I ended up buying the zone with crowns. I spent more time with a Lore Master than my own family. Needless to say, these spells were busted. Deer Knight and Ratspin were mandatory for Death and Life wizards, not just because these schools lacked other low-rank AoE hits, but also because their high-rank AoE hits were just a lot weaker back then. Pigsy was, and still is, by far the best heal spell in the entire game, and the damage per pip on some of these lore hits was just downright diabolical. Combine this with the fact you can enchant them, and you bet they were being abused in PvP. Eventually, KI felt the Lore Master's sigil was getting too crowded, so in summer 2022, they distributed its spell drops to other bosses around the spiral. But instead of dropping the actual spells, these bosses now drop spellaments, which are essentially pieces of spells you collect to eventually unlock them. Lame. Sure, the new system of acquiring lore spells through spellaments relies less on RNG, and can pretty much guarantee unlocking the spell after a certain number of runs. But what's the fun in that? New players will never get to experience the pure euphoria of being jump scared by a spell drop, and the concept of spellaments annoyingly enables further monetization. But in the end, most of this doesn't even matter, because KI nerfed, added school pips to, and PvP banned most lore spells anyway. Number 45, KI Live. KI Live is KingsIsle's ongoing series of monthly live streams where the devs hang out, provide game updates, and answer fan questions. It's not a perfect production by any means, often filled with long-winded tangents, avoiding certain questions, and lots of cringy moments. But it's clear the KI team puts a ton of thought and care into interacting with its fanbase. This level of transparency is crucial towards fostering a strong community. And they give out free stuff too. Number 44, Mark and Recall. Players often forget that marking your spot is a new feature, but believe it or not, this wasn't a thing during launch. In a game where you have to hike long distances on foot, even sometimes without a mount, being able to save your coordinates on the map and teleport back at any time really makes your life easier. Number 43, Dungeon Recall. Speaking of making your life easier, if you die in a dungeon, Dungeon Recall lets you instantly teleport back inside, saving you the hassle of having to walk all the way back to that dungeon's entrance. But this isn't the only benefit of Dungeon Recall. Back in the day, if you were returning to a dungeon after dying inside, toxic players with nothing better to do would camp the sigil and purposefully enter with you at the last second, just to reset your progress. This is because re-entering a dungeon with a different group of players spawns an entirely new instance. Thankfully, with Dungeon Recall, you'll never fall victim to this trap again. If you used to do this, I hope both sides of your pillow are always warm. Number 42, Level Locking. This feature allows you to lock your current level to prevent leveling up. You'll still gain experience, but you won't level up until you decide to unlock it. This is really only useful for PvP players who don't want to face harder opponents from leveling up. I actually used this feature back in the day on my level 10 Ice Warlord. By locking my level, I was allowed to compete in the monthly Deckathalon event without accidentally leveling up from the experience and permanently losing access to level 10 PvP. Number 41, Wizcord. Since 2009, Wizard101's hosted an online forum board on their main site, serving as the go-to space for discussing any and all things Wiz-related. Sadly, in 2023, KI shut these forums down, moving all discussion over to Discord. This new Wizard101 Discord server, or Wizcord as the community calls it, is now the primary spot for players and devs to interact with each other. As much as I miss the nostalgia of scrolling through Wiz forums, there's no denying that Discord allows for a faster, easier, and overall much more enjoyable social experience. Number 40, Armor Piercing. Armor Piercing is a stat that reduces the value of your opponent's shields and resistance while you hit them. When this was introduced back in November 2011, it actually wasn't considered that good of a stat. Just like stun resistance, armor piercing came in minuscule amounts, and PvE mobs hardly had any resistance or casted shields. But as time went on, KI began giving mobs and bosses more and more resistance, requiring you to pierce through if you want to dish out big damage. So for a while, Pierce Jewels became the most common item to farm for, but thankfully KI now lets you craft them in Wallaroo. But yeah, I can't emphasize enough how important Pierce is for offensive builds. And I only really talked about its importance in PvE. Good luck PvPing against toxic Jade Stallers without it. Number 39, Shadow Magic. During the Chrysalis Part 1 update in November 2013, players were introduced to a new school of magic so dangerous that Bartleby and Grandmother Raven told Merle Ambrose not to delve into it. Wow, that's edgy. In this update, players were given shadow stats, including a shadow rating for building shadow pips, and of course, shadow spells. Shadow spells fall under two main categories: transformation spells, which are utility spells that grant temporary stat boosts and bonus effects, and creature spells, which are hits that deal pure shadow damage. Aside from Shadow Strike, which sees a lot of use countering Jade Stallers in competitive PvP even to this day, it's no secret that the rest of these shadow spells are pretty awful. For starters, your shadow damage stat is much lower than your own school's damage stat, inherently making these hits a lot weaker than they look. Plus, these spell mechanics are just too confusing for casual players, and why am I getting punished for using them? The only redeeming quality of Shadow Magic was the eventual introduction of the Shadow Enhanced hits you all know and love today. These spells cost a Shadow Pip, but use your own school's damage stat, making them actually viable. They're cool, they're powerful, and they give players something to look forward to with each new update. Number 38, Community Spiral Cup. This is a massive annual tournament hosted by KI that pits communities against each other in Wizard101 related challenges, like house decorating, speedrunning, PvPing, and much more. Each year, the winning team's ultimate prize is a brand new custom mount of their choice to be added into the game. That's actually crazy! Aside from previous Make-A-Wish events, never before has KI given players the power to create a brand new in-game item like this. I think it's great to see the community come together in such a fun and exciting way, and I think a Gladrocker mount would be legendary. Number 37, One-Shot Gauntlets. Normally, I prefer ranking similar topics close together, like how I followed Mark in Recall with Dungeon Recall. So originally, I was planning on covering One-Shot Gauntlets right after Housing Gauntlets, but man, One-Shot Gauntlets are just so much better. For starters, instead of being monetized, you can easily farm for them. Instead of wasting your time with a bunch of pointless mob battles before the final boss fight, you just have the one single boss fight. And instead of maybe getting a gear drop, you're guaranteed to get a gear drop. And the gear's pretty good. In fact, plenty of Exalted Duel gear is on par with Darkmoor gear. One-Shot Gauntlets may not have the flair, immersion, and storyline elements of Housing Gauntlets, but strictly from a farming perspective, they're way better. KI eventually evolved the concept of one-shot duels into boss rematches, where instead of farming for them, you craft them with reagents. They're fun, challenging, and drop some of the best gear in the game at the time I'm recording this. Okay, you caught me. Yes, Battle of the Bands and Tangle with Terror do exist. And yes, they technically are one-shot gauntlets, even if they align more towards housing gauntlets, with quest lines and a strict paywall. But even KI knows how undesirable both gauntlets are. I mean, they haven't released a new one since these came out in spring 2015. Number 36, Skeleton Key Bosses. Similar to one-shot duels, you can use skeleton keys to unlock single-time boss encounters around the spiral. Although these keys are hard to come by, each key boss drops amazing rewards, like crowns gear, mounts, and spell elements, making these encounters well worth it. And the fights themselves are exciting, with boss cheats revolving around special gimmicks, like not looking directly into the eyes of a Gorgon, spam hitting the boss every round, being forced to off-school hit, playing hot potato with a massive damage over time, and so on. This boss has 2 million health. That's great. Number 35, Magic Mirror. It's about time this feature got added to the game. The Magic Mirror lets you customize your face and skin tone, basically some of the features you chose during the tutorial. I will always be a fan of more ways to customize your character, and it's nice your original appearance from the tutorial is no longer permanent. But that mirror's face gives me nightmares. Number 34, Spellwriting. Being able to upgrade your spells with spell elements is a really fun concept and a great way to add more customization into the game. Although its inception was problematic, with certain pay-to-win spell element upgrades being abused in PvP, over the years KI's introduced tons of free ways to obtain spell elements, even letting you reset your upgrades with gold. I'm looking at you, trading points. Today, the spellwriting system finally found its footing in-game, feeling a lot more fleshed out and balanced. Number 33, Crafting. Wizard101's crafting system is not much different from any other game. It's simple to learn and easy to use. It's nice how many additional crafting slots you get as you rank up. And I also like how starting with Imperia Part 2 in fall 2018, the devs implement pity systems, where if you aren't lucky with boss drops, you can now just craft your max level gear instead. Number 32, Quest Friend Finder. Not the same as Quest Finder or Friend Finder. Man, KI really needs to differentiate these names. Quest Friend Finder is such a new feature, I honestly haven't had the chance to use it much yet. But hey, it helps you find players to quest with. Sounds good to me. Number 31, Elixirs. Elixirs started off by giving temporary stat boosts, but over time, KI evolved this concept to cover pretty much any benefit. We now have energy refills, backpack expansions, crafting timer resets, even additional character slots. And although the more useful elixirs are locked behind a paywall, KI often gives them out for free as weekly event rewards and from code giveaways. You don't want to know how many energy elixirs I've gone through. Number 30, Follower NPCs. This is a brilliant concept that's sadly fallen into obscurity over time. Starting in Chrysalis, friendly NPCs you meet throughout the main storyline follow you around and aid you in battle. Except instead of playing an active role in combat like minions or henchmen, they provide passive benefits like stat boosts or spell cards. I love this mechanic. It really adds depth and a sense of purpose to the characters you meet along your journey. It feels like they actually want to help you save the world, and each of their benefits made sense. The Bat boosts your shadow rating, the Lemuria heroes give you their own spell card, the heroic Divim massively boosts your damage and resist. Sadly, KI's pretty much given up on this mechanic in recent worlds. We only have one follower NPC in Novus and one in Wallaroo. I feel like this idea had a lot more potential to be explored by KI. Perhaps give us followers that boost movement speed, cheat cast buffs, or increase invisibility duration outside of battle. Give us the option to level up our follower NPCs for increased benefits, or maybe even have evil NPCs follow us that hurt our stats as a challenge. It's a shame KI's given up on this. Number 29, Guild Museum. Want something less competitive to do with your guild members than raiding? Guild Museum is for you. Over a 2-hour window, farm mobs, and collect materials to build artifacts for your guild's museum exhibits. Doing so awards you with exclusive housing item recipes and bragging rights? You may not get many rewards for yourself, but that's okay, because honestly just chilling and hanging out with your friends makes this activity worthwhile. Number 28, School Pets. I think I speak for everyone when I say we miss school pets. This was a tradition where every 20 levels or so, the player would receive a special quest to obtain a school-exclusive pet. This may not seem like a big deal, but these pets were iconic. Nothing felt better than reaching a brand new milestone level and getting such a cute little fan favorite as your reward. And fun fact, the first batch of level 48 school pets were some of the first pets in the entire game with a stat boost, long before talents were a thing. Sadly, KI discontinued school pets after level 118. Bring them back! Number 27, Boss Cheats. After releasing Arc 1, the devs hit a roadblock. How can we continue to increase the difficulty of the game without just mindlessly releasing bosses with more and more HP? One of their solutions was boss cheats. Starting with the retired Celestia prequest dungeon back in July 2010, the devs began giving bosses unique traits to bend the rules of combat, like casting permanent shields, preventing you from blading on certain rounds, interrupt casting mantles, interrupt casting minions, inserting harmful spells into your hand, confusing you, forcing you to damage the boss every single round to avoid this? I gotta give KI credit where it's due. Boss cheats spruce up the game, forcing players to switch up their strategy from the same old blade feint AoE approach, and they give bosses personality, which in turn adds immersion. But sometimes KI gets a little too creative, ramping up boss cheats to absurd degrees. This boss makes you kill it by healing. Number 26, Stitching and Rate My Stitch. If you couldn't already tell, I love character customization. Using the stats from one piece of gear but the appearance of another is honestly a feature every MMO should have. And KI nailed it with the Rate My Stitch event. A monthly themed Stitch contest is a brilliant way to keep stitching relevant, enabling players to showcase their talent and creativity. KI even added a way to stitch gear for free, using Stitch tokens which you earn during the event. It's awesome that free-to-play wizards can now access stitching. Number 25, Challenge Mode. In the past, KI would spike the difficulty of end-of-world boss battles, so the main quest line would be a breeze all world long, and then, well, good luck. From a design perspective, this made sense. Final bosses should feel threatening. Spiking their difficulty adds immersion, raises the stakes, and makes your victory feel much more rewarding. But while competitive players prefer a challenge, casual players exist too, and don't necessarily farm max gear or train the perfect pet. So a large portion of the player base would get hard stuck on these final bosses. And while this was okay for the time being, eventually upon releasing the next world, KI would have to go back and retroactively nerf the previous world's final fight to allow casual players to progress. This approach grossly watered down the PvE experience, making the game too easy for competitive players. In March 2023, it was time for a change. Enter Challenge Mode, KI's solution to appease both sets of players. Now, for major boss battles, KI releases two versions, Standard Mode and Challenge Mode. Standard Mode feels like the rest of PvE, nothing more than a few boss cheats, but Challenge Mode gives players a run for their money. Here, bosses have additional cheats, and advanced combat rules apply, meaning you can't use any PvP banned cards like feints, revives, or AoE hits, you can't rejoin any fight you flee, you can't use potions, you can't fix your deck inside, you can't set any markers, level scaling applies, and turn order alternates. This standard challenge split was a brilliant move on KI's part, because now casual players can progress through the main quest line, while competitive players can still break a sweat for better rewards. Number 24, Set Bonuses. I love this feature. The more items you equip from the same set, the more additional stats and benefits you get. This allows for interesting stat trades, adding a lot more variety to your gear setup. Sure, you could swap out a few Dragoon pieces for slightly better gear, or you could commit to the bit and rock all 7 Dragoon pieces for a crazy 25% stun resist bonus. Sadly, just like faction vendors and school pets, KI seems to have completely forgotten about set bonuses, as they haven't released a new set in a very long time. I really hope they'll come back in the future though, even if they drive me crazy at the bazaar. Why won't you let me sell these? Number 23, Name and Gender Change. You already know how I feel about these from my Iceberg Part 2 video. Big win for the community. Number 22, Classic Mode. If you know me, you know I love nostalgia, so nothing brings me more joy than turning on classic mode. It's a feature that reverts all graphics and music back to their original versions from 2008. It's purely cosmetic, having no impact on actual gameplay, and it only affects Wizard City. But given how so many other new features are motivated by corporate greed, classic mode just feels like such a special treat from KI. The devs didn't have to give us this, but they did, knowing how much veteran players would appreciate it. Now if only we'd get an old school Wizard101 server. Number 21, Holiday Events. Nothing's more heartwarming and nostalgic than early 2000s MMO holiday events, and Wizard101 is no exception. The big three are Christmas, Halloween, and Wizard101's birthday, each with festive decorations, special gifts, and fun challenges. KI's poured a lot of heart and soul into these three events, and it shows. We also get smaller celebrations for the Lunar New Year, Valentine's Day, Mardi Gras, St. Patrick's Day, April Fools, Easter, Mother's Day, Father's Day, July 4th, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, and New Year's. But these usually just consist of a small code giveaway or some festive items appearing in the crown shop. Regardless, Wizard101's holiday events break up the year and give players something to look forward to. As a kid, I cared more about celebrating holidays in Wizard101 than in real life. Nothing puts a smile on my face like hearing,
"Trick or treat, give me something fun or sweet."
The only downside is that KI hasn't really changed these events much over the past decade, so from a gameplay perspective, they start feeling stale like the legacy events. But their charm and nostalgia are timeless. Number 20, Backpack Butler. The Backpack Butler lets you search your entire inventory, including all houses, vaults, and banks, to instantly find the location of any item. Knowing exactly which vault and which house a certain piece of gear is incredibly useful, and saves so much time spent digging around. Number 19, Vaults. Speaking of inventory, a common issue most Wizard101 players run into is running out of item space. It doesn't matter how many expand backpack elixirs you buy from the crown shop, how much you fill your bank, or how many alternate characters you create for storage, at some point, you're simply gonna run out of space. It's inevitable. To solve this, KI introduced vaults. There's the gear vault, the seed vault, the jewel vault, and the treasure card vault. Just kidding, this one never made it out of test realm. Each vault holds 100 extra space for its respective item, and you can store 2 of each vault in one castle. So that's an extra 200 gear, 200 seeds, and 200 jewels per castle. Talk about a quality of life improvement. Never again will you run out of space on a character, and if you're as crazy as me, you'll even keep a spreadsheet detailing which vaults and which houses hold certain items. What? It's called staying organized. Number 18, Shared Bank. The third topic in a row relating to inventory, in March 2009, KI gave us the Shared Bank. This not only serves as additional storage, but even lets you store certain items you can't place in your regular bank, like reagents and pet snacks. But that's not all. The best part about the shared bank is that it lets you trade items between your characters. This is something players have been asking for since launch. Trading with yourself makes things like starting a brand new wizard so much easier, because now you can just transfer overpowered pets and gear from your main wizard over to your new wizard and breeze through the game. Now, if only the devs would let you trade items with other players. Number 17, Raids. Every true MMO has a raiding feature, so it was only a matter of time before Wizard101 introduced them in summer 2022. Raids are an actual challenge, requiring a coordinated group of 12 guild members with max level gear to take on several challenges within a strict time limit. And if the time runs out, you lose. Raids follow Wizard101's advanced combat system, include ridiculous overworld elements like poisonous rain that chips away at your health and mana, and require game mechanics like fishing, cantrips, and pet mode. Clearly, there's a lot to unpack here, so much so that every guild has a carefully written guide mapping out every role's strategy, like what cards each person needs to pack and where they need to be at all times. I actually love seeing KI release challenging content like this. So much of Wizard101 is a walk in the park. Even the more difficult cheating bosses you encounter during main game really aren't too bad. So it's refreshing to get some serious endgame content like this. And you get some amazing rewards too, like exclusive gear, pets, and elixirs. Number 16, Astral Magic. When Celestia was released in October 2010, KI did the unthinkable and added 3 new schools of magic: Sun, Moon, and Star. This was groundbreaking at the time. I remember being shocked as a kid to learn there's other schools outside the original 7 we start with in Ravenwood. Lore-wise, KI did a phenomenal job weaving these astral schools into the ancient history of Celestia, making your discovery of them feel exciting and important. And gameplay-wise, well, things get interesting. Star Magic grants you temporary stat boosts, a solid mechanic that's remained relevant over the past decade. I love star spells. Sun Magic gives you the ability to enchant your hits, greatly buffing their damage or accuracy. You can also enchant your blades and traps, allowing you to stack multiple copies of each. But Sun Magic's a blessing and a curse, because although this concept drastically increases damage output to the point where sun spells are a staple in every player's deck, from a design perspective, sun spells are kind of a disaster. They both clog your deck and contribute to an overall power creep that's unhealthy for the game. I'd honestly prefer if KI just removed sun spells entirely, like what they did for advanced combat, but that's a discussion most players aren't ready for. Oh, and the Moon School? We don't talk about the Moon School. Number 15, Jewels and Pins. Extra stats for your gear? What's there not to love? With pins, you can even drastically raise your off-school stats, allowing you to dual school with ease. Number 14, Friendly Players. You're probably wondering why I'm ranking such a minor, forgettable feature so high on the list. I mean, being a friendly player just lets anyone in the game message or teleport to you, which I honestly can't believe anyone would willingly sign up for. The thing is, some very generous community members create level 1 wizards to spin AFK in popular areas like the Bazaar, Arena, and Pet Pavilion, serving as 24/7 instant teleport paths to these locations. I wonder if KI even knows about this. I haven't walked to the Bazaar in years. Number 13, Badge Leaderboard. This was a brilliant way to incentivize badge farming by introducing friendly competition. In the past, players' badge counts were private, and collecting badges was something only the most dedicated completionists would spend time on. But now, the new badge leaderboard found in Old Town gives players real-time recognition for their efforts, making badge collecting fun and rewarding. I was even ranked number 7 globally at one point. Number 12, Gardening. I've always loved how KI designed in-game plants so lively and animated. For a side feature that's completely optional, gardening is hands down the most lucrative activity in the entire game. Investing in a 69 plot of couch potatoes early on is basically an infinite money scheme. And pet snacks too. It feels illegal how many mega snacks you accumulate from this method. I'm actually shocked KI hasn't stepped in to ban it. Number 11, Rhoshambo. Oh, Ratbeard's sacred Rhoshambo wheel. November 2021 was a major inflection point in the history of Wiz. Around this time, lead designer Ratbeard publicly announced his plans for the future of school design, mostly geared towards advanced combat. Going forward, instead of following the same old binary relationship between schools we've experienced so far, like Fire and Ice boosting each other, Storm and Myth boosting each other, and Life and Death boosting each other, we'll begin to see more cyclical interplay between schools, following this wheel diagram he dubbed the Rhoshambo wheel. I actually love this new design model. Each school's responsible for a single mechanic and counters 2 other school mechanics. For example, Ice casts shields, and since the 2 schools' ice counters on the Rhoshambo wheel are Storm and Death, Ice counters blades and weaknesses. For another example, Life casts heal over times and counters damage over times and traps, and so on and so forth. This adds a whole new dimension to combat, strengthening school identity and allowing for more interesting deck setup. A lot of veteran players have resented this drastic change, but in my opinion, battles just feel a lot more fun now. There's more risk to fighting a school that counters you, and more reward to fighting a school you counter. This kind of feels like Pokemon, and I love it. Now we're down to the final 10. Number 10, Voice Acting. Voice acting brings Wizard101's characters to life, adding depth and immersion to the questing experience. KI's voice actors do a remarkable job. I've always loved how their accents match the real-world regions their characters are based on. The NPCs in Caramel actually sound German. The NPCs in Wallaroo actually sound Australian. Just scrolling through Wizard101's IMDb page shows so many of KI's talented voice actors. They even got Selena Gomez and Nick Jonas from the Disney Channel. So many of these voices shaped our childhood, and the game simply would not be the same without them. Number 9. Ranked PvP. I mean, how could this not be up here? PvP is the essence of competitive Wizard101, and although it technically existed during launch as a standalone practice ring at the arena, in January 2009, the devs finally introduced ranked PvP, changing the game forever. Here we got a brand new ELO rating system, a matchmaking queue, different rankings, new arenas, arena tickets, and vendor prizes. Ranked PvP is a whole new world, exploring intricate spell synergies, shifting metas, and actual combat strategy, opposed to the brainless blade feint AoE approach everyone uses in PvE. Of course, PvP's had its controversies over the years, like toxic jade stalling, stream sniping, setting, puppeting, and crude behavior, as well as the unfavorable game updates implemented over the years meant to accommodate PvP, like Maycast rate reductions, drastic spell nerfs, reworking Shadow Pip gain from a percentage system to a slower rating system, and these ugly PvP ban symbols that block the beautiful card artwork. Please put these at the bottom or something. I don't care, just move these. But the positives outweigh the negatives, and with ranked PvP came a spectacular competitive community that still thrives today. Number 8. Mounts. Do I even have to explain this one? Number 7. Archmastery and School Pips. For the longest time, an ongoing issue in Wizard101 was that even though the game lets you train spells from other schools, you couldn't effectively cast them in combat. And that's because you can only use power pips on your own school spells. You could buy a mastery amulet, as I mentioned earlier, but doing so sacrifices stats, and still this only lets you use power pips for one additional school. Enter Archmastery. Introduced in fall 2022, this brand new stat controls the rate at which you gain school pips to use as power pips for other schools. And at any time during combat, you could simply switch the school you gain school pips for, allowing you to off-school hit with ease. Even heals and utility spells are easier to cast than ever before, regardless of what school you are. Even mutate spells are slightly more viable now. I mean, I wouldn't use them. Number 6. Team Up. The Team Up system changed Wizard101 forever. Before it was a thing, dungeon sigils were restricted to your own realm, so the only way to find a team for your dungeon was by waiting endlessly at the sigil, or by nagging all your friends. Finally, in March 2014, KI introduced Team Up, allowing you to instantly join players across any realm entering your dungeon. And as if that already wasn't a major quality of life improvement on its own, 1 year later in April 2015, KI added the Team Up kiosk in Old Town. Now, max level players with nothing better to do can give back to the community by hopping in random team ups. KI even made a 5,000 team up badge as an incentive. Number 5. Side Worlds. Apart from all the worlds you explore in your main questline, KI's also introduced plenty of side worlds. We have Grizzleheim and Wisteria, which are fully fleshed out with tons of quests, zones, and a main hub that's accessible through the world door. Then we have Darkmoor and Aquila, which aren't as expansive and not prominent enough to access through the world door, but still offer their own unique set of challenging dungeons. And finally, we have places like the Catacombs and Kembalong, which are technically part of Wizard City and Mushu respectively, but I'll still count them here. Lore-wise, KI's done a remarkable job weaving each side world story seamlessly into the history of the Spiral, and from a gameplay perspective, it's refreshing to take a break from the main storyline and explore new territory. I wish KI would spend more time and resources developing side worlds instead of housing gauntlets. Why is this the only way we get to explore Cool Ranch? Number 4. Beastmoon. There's 2 versions of Beastmoon. Hunt, the PvP mode, and Mayhem, the PvE mode. Both are weekly events that occur once a month. I hate Mayhem. It's dull, repetitive, and way too easy, consisting of the same blade AoE strategy over and over and over. But Beastmoon Hunt, the PvP mode, oh my god. There's a reason I literally block off the first week of every month on my personal calendar, because that's when this event runs. I love Beastmoon Hunt. I even hosted a Beastmoon roundtable with KI back in 2021. It's fun, it's creative, it's challenging, it's rewarding. It's like regular PvP but without a barrier to entry, meaning it's accessible to everyone. Wanna try PvP as a healer? Instead of spending months maxing out a life wizard and farming metagear for ranked PvP, just hop into a Beastmoon match and choose a life form. Same experience, but even better. The math is scaled down using addition and subtraction instead of multiplication and division, meaning you can easily perform mental math in your head to calculate damage values. Turns are much faster with shorter timers and quicker spell animations. Maps are symmetrical, making it easy to get around. I've always thought KI should just separate Beastmoon Hunt from Wizard101 entirely and turn it into its very own franchise, like a separate game called Beast101 or something. I'm not sure exactly how that would work because a lot of Beastmoon's resource farming is tied into Wizard101 mechanics, but I'm sure it's possible. At the very least, I'm shocked KI hasn't made Beastmoon Hunt a permanent game mode. My only criticism is that KI shouldn't have started introducing Lunari bundles in the Crown Shop, because now the game has this pay-to-win atmosphere it didn't have before. Sweats are dropping thousands of dollars unlocking and maxing out every form. But hey, this is KI we're talking about. Monetization was inevitable. Number 3, house decorating and castle tours. When Wizard101 launched in September 2008, players only had a small dorm room which they could decorate with housing items they'd collect along their journey. Since then, this concept has evolved so much. We now have magnificent castles, obtainable through bundles or crafting, castle magic, letting you animate items and add special effects, advanced movement, allowing you to rotate and position items down to exact coordinates, daily rewards, and so much more. House decorating gives players unlimited creative freedom to fully express themselves. It sparked a thriving community, bringing decorators together to support and share their creations. The most dedicated house decorators will spend up to several months at a time working on their projects. It's unbelievable just how creative these players can get. Sometimes it doesn't even feel like I'm on Wizard101 when I'm exploring their amazing creations. And KI nailed it with the Castle Tours feature, allowing players to show off their work to hopefully earn a spot on the global leaderboard, further incentivizes decorating absolute masterpieces. Number 2, the Bazaar. The Bazaar is one of the greatest gifts KI's ever given us. Having access to a marketplace built on an entirely player-run economy so that prices are determined by supply and demand makes buying and selling whatever you need easier than ever before. This is the closest thing we have to trading with other players, as long as you're quick enough not to get sniped. And the best part is, you're guaranteed to get better value at the Bazaar than from any other vendor in the entire game, rendering them all completely useless. Sorry guys. You can also find some really valuable stuff here, like rare boss drops, Grub Guardian rewards, and hard to come by reagents. Sometimes I'll literally log on just to check the Bazaar for rare items. Like the other day, I bought nearly 1,500 blueprint tokens. I still can't believe it. I never need to touch Spiral Scene ever again. And true Wizard101 fans know the Bazaar serves as the backbone for the underground Empower black market, where players will secretly trade Empower treasure cards for monetary gifts like crown packs, bundles, and elixirs. It's pretty insane how the player base formed an entire underground market unregulated by the devs, and it's all thanks to the Bazaar. Number 1, the best new feature in the entire game, Advanced Pets. It can't be overstated just how game-changing the Advanced Pets update was for Wizard101. Pet hatching, minigames, training, feeding, stats, talents, pedigrees, energy? Here the devs took a mechanic that was originally purely cosmetic, serving no real purpose other than following you around looking all cute and cuddly, and brilliantly transformed it into one of the most, if not the most, integral features in the entire game to this day. Pets play a crucial role in competitive combat, providing significant stat boosts, exclusive item cards, and interrupting maycasts that can make or break a fight. They can also provide benefits outside of combat, like producing bonus gold and increasing the value of health and mana wisps. Over the past decade, we've seen damage pets, ward pets, healer pets, crit pets, maycast pets, gardening pets, fishing pets, Deckathalon pets, raid pets, Spellment retriever pets, carrying a brand new wizard through Arc 1 pets. and I'm barely scratching the surface. Even bosses get pets! Being able to mix and match from hundreds of pet bodies with hundreds of pet talents just adds so much variation to your gameplay style. It's impressive how the pet hatching algorithm KI implemented back in 2010 still holds up today, keeping players pouring their blood, sweat, and tears, endlessly breeding offspring after offspring just to achieve the perfect pet they desire. And with a constantly shifting meta, there's never a reason not to be training a new pet. Sure, pet training is a rigorous and exhausting process that demands tons of resources like Mega Snacks Gold and Elixirs, as well as thorough research on concepts like wow factors and building base pets. I mean, every day you'll find sob stories about mega pet fails on Reddit. But pets are the lifeblood of Wizard101, and I can't imagine the game without them. And that's the list. Thank you to everyone who's watched or subscribed to my content. I couldn't have gotten this far without you.